Hi, I'm Anushka Rathod. I'm a personal finance content creator and also the founder of Influence Club.
Hi, I'm Monika Halan, and I'm the author of Let's Talk Money.
And I'm a fan. Okay, let's start. All right. Growing up, was money a common topic of conversation in your home?
So, Anushka, growing up, I grew up in the 1970s, and India was a socialist country till 1991, okay? Much before your time. And we grew up with nothing. There was like no phones, no cars, no pizza, there was nothing. So the only conversation about money was that there wasn't enough of it. You know, the earnings were very small, the opportunities were very small. Okay, so that whole feeling of a frugal country is sort of embedded into my generation's DNA. So the conversations were there about money, but it was more of this tightness that there isn't enough, even for, things which we take completely for granted today. Your generation has had, you've been born after that big economic reform period of 1991. So I call you all the abundance generation, and thank God for this. And we are the scarcity generation. So the conversation really was how to spend as little as possible.
But adding to that, even though I am from an abundance generation, I'm from a Marwadi family.
Okay.
So frugality is in our blood.
Yeah.
Growing up, we did have conversations around money, and it was always around धंधा. इसमें इतना टका बनता है, इसमें इतना ROI निकलेगा, यहाँ से ब्याज पे लेके यहाँ पे चढ़ा सकते हैं. So it was like how do you exactly grow your money is what we've talked about, or like there were dinner table conversations around it. Maybe we weren't a part of it, but I've always heard about it. And I think when I was growing up, I actually asked my mother once, are we poor? Because, there were times when we would go to the grocery store and my dad would not take cream biscuits. He would take normal biscuit.
Yeah.
And I would see all my friends having cream biscuits. It was a very small thing, but I was a kid back then. And that's when I went home and I asked, Mom, are we poor? Like, no, your dad just can't spend. So, but I think it's a good thing, especially in the age of abundance, especially in an age where you are always bombarded with ads to buy and temptations all around. Frugality is very important. I'm very glad that I had that in my upbringing.
So, Anushka, at what age did you start dealing with your own money or your own personal finances?
In Marwadi families, we have this lifafa system. So whenever we go to some relative's house, they would give us an envelope full of, money. It would be like 501 rupees, 1001 rupees, shagun ka lifafa and all of that. So I remember saving all of that up and putting it, giving it to my mom to put it in her bank so that it will...
How old were you at this time?
It started when I was, say, 8, 9.
Okay.
And then my mom would, collect all of it and buy, say, a small pendant or a small earring or something like that. So I think my first investment was a collection of all those lifafas and shagun money and whatever we could get for Rakhi and all of that, and invest that into gold because that's what my mom would get for me. But I started looking at investments probably when I was 18, when I did my first internship, got like a lump sum in my hand. And so there also, right, like my dad lost money in the 2008 crisis. So he was completely averse to investing in the stock market. I came in a very different environment. And also people around me were not that scared, people my age.
Yeah.
So when I decided to pursue a career also related in, the capital markets, my dad was against it. But that's how I started and explored that option. What about you?
So I did a master's in economics from the Delhi School of Economics. And I remember doing 5-6 pages of trigonometric equations and advanced maths, and we were modeling different economic models. And so it was all very, difficult questions we were answering. But after I left the school, I remember one time when my father said, fill out your checkbook. So I, of course, had a bank account and I didn't know how to fill a check. So that was sort of a wake-up moment for me that I have an advanced degree in economics, but I don't know anything about my own personal money. So those realizations came to me, and then I went to the UK to do a second master's. This time it was in journalism. And I had a stipend, I had a scholarship. And I remember that I just didn't know how to manage it. It was like all over the place between the savings and the fixed. I wouldn't be able to make that transition of moving money. And I remember the banker calling me and saying, there is money sitting there, but you're not transferring. So your balance is in negative. So what are you doing? So those early memories are there that I'm so highly educated, but I have no idea about my own finances. So that's where the journey sort of began for me, that I need to be in control. I need to start at least controlling my cash flows, if nothing else. And then, of course, as you grow in life, you have a family and you start investing. So that journey, but my first product was the Public Provident Fund. It wasn't even the capital markets, because again, by the time I started investing, markets were just sort of, liberalizing. It was just beginning. And I was very afraid of the stock market. Like, I didn't know. This is the early 1990s. What we see today hadn't happened. So, and also, we, as a young, poor family, we were very risk averse, my husband and I. So the first investment was the Public Provident Fund. And, it was a great product. It still is. So that's how really the journey began.
For me, it was capital markets mainly because people around me were investing and I did not understand the risk back then. So mind you, for almost 2 years, I was very risk on. I faced some losses and then I became risk off again and went with PPF and FDs also.
No, it's this right mix. Like you realize that it's both. The way that I say that you need to take risk with some seatbelts on.
Yeah.
So you secure your today before you can take risk for the future.
Well said. Yeah. What is it about economics and finance that drew you to it?
Okay, so here's a story. This is class 8. So we could then choose one subject in the school that I was, and the choice was between economics, home science, and some other stuff. And I remember there's a distinct memory of coming home with that, notice from school saying that tick the one that you will choose. And in class 8, I mean, honestly, I had no thought in my head. I was really like, whatever. So I gave it to my mom. And I remember my mom and my sister having this big discussion that, she should be suited more for home science. And before I knew it, my dad had taken that thing, ticked economics, signed it and given it to me. He was an economics professor. So he took that decision for me. And that sort of became my life. How small things in your life, like my life might have been different if that home science box had been ticked. That's how really the journey began. And then as I got deeper into it, I understood you get the complexity of it. Finance was actually a much later discovery. I sort of stumbled upon it through my profession. I have been a career journalist, business journalist. But then there was a new magazine being launched called Intelligent Investor. This is way back in 1996. See, the markets had just opened up. Liberalization had just happened. The personal finance market, the products were beginning to come in. And I was one of the first recruits. I was in Economic Times and I shifted for a variety of reasons to do this thing which nobody in India had done before, which is personal finance. And that's when I discovered, one, the joy of Excel. I remember the first calculation I did sitting in that basement of an office. I used the Excel sheet to calculate what 5,000 rupees a month for 30 years in PPF would do. And the answer was in crores. And I remember, all the big journalists like Vinod Mehta and Sandeepan Dev and all, falling off their chairs. Like, what? You really can make that much in a safe product? So the discovery of finance came through a very practical use-based approach of trying to write articles to inform people. So that's really where it started.
So how I got into this is, again, coming from a business family, I saw a lot of people around me respect people with money. In my community, I think India, everywhere in general, money equals to respect. And I also saw a lot of my immediate family members lose a lot of money in business. And hence, I could see that, they did not have that position or power or value in the society anymore. I was scared when it came to money, or rather not having it, because I had seen it in my immediate family and because I was always told that, our income is not, you don't get a paycheck. It's year to year, quarter to quarter. We don't know what's going to happen. So I always had that mindset, or I was always very anxious when it came to money. And hence, I always wanted to have more of it so that I did not have to go through that. Taking commerce in 11th, 12th was a no-brainer for me because I always loved reading. I would participate in a lot of debates and elocution back in school. So I was very sure I wanted commerce. Right before my 12th exams, I had to decide what I want to do with my future. And I was was a studious kid because I knew that you had to go to a good college to get a good job. How I decided exactly finance or exactly CFA is funny because we were seeing average salaries after doing certain degrees, and
Right.
CFA came on top with the
Right.
options that I had.
Yeah.
So my dad and I, we thought that this is the cost of the job. This is the average salary that you get after you do your after you complete your degree. This is the ROI. This is the payback period. Sounds good. Let's
Wonderful.
do it.
But tell me, are there more sorted people like your age? Because a lot of what I tend to hear is that finance and money is not something that the younger generation thinks deeply about. It's more about spending. So this sort of a attitude towards money is very feet on the ground, very practical. And it really is music to my ears because look, financial security is your sort of springboard for the rest of your life.
It's very important to know where to stop,
Yes.
how much is your enough, and where
Yeah.
do you draw that balance.
Yeah.
If that is sorted, it
Yeah.
gets to it. And I think a lot of people who have studied commerce or have some sort of, finance background, they are cautious about it. But a lot of kids today,
Yeah.
I would not say kids, but people in their late 20s, early 20s, of course, but even late 20s are living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
Either because the cost of living is so high in one of all these metro cities, or because just there are so many options to spend. And today, the society has become a lot more status driven. Like I go to events and all, and if I'm not carrying those brands, people judge me. So I think it has to be a balance. You need to know what you can afford and ultimately also surround yourself with the right people so that you make smarter choices in life.
Correct. And the way that I like to talk about this is that you have to decide whether you need it or do you greed it. And sometimes, the way that you look, your accessories is part of a business cost.
Yeah.
So, you park it there that, look, this is what it costs to have the persona that I have, and therefore I will spend on it. So that makes it easier to do.
We like Gen Z has this term called as delulu.
What is that?
So we live in delusion. So whenever we want to convince ourselves, we be like, oh, this is an investment. Oh, this bag is an investment because, it's, the cost of it has risen over the years.
I'll tell you a secret.
Yeah.
The older generation had the same delulu.
Oh.
But that was silk saris.
Oh.
The number of women
Yeah.
I have seen who will buy this exorbitant silk sari. And, in family gatherings, investment, it's an investment. I'm saying, you are not going to sell this, okay?
Yeah.
There's no investment. It's a delulu.
Generations change, habits
I know
remain
it
the
doesn't.
same.
It doesn't change. Okay. So what is the most common question you get asked when it comes to financial advice? I have people asking me stuff wherever I go. They call me for something. The conversations sort of end up being about their personal finances. It's like a doctor.
Yeah.
The jokes are that you go to a doctor's wedding and you're showing like dard ho raha hai.
The same thing happens here also. But I think a lot of people, like the most asked question to me is, how do we begin? Or where do we begin? Or how do I start? Along with that, I think because I make a lot of videos on budgeting, credit cards also, a lot of the questions that I get, or at least, from in my social circles is, how do I get the best deal on this? Like, if I want to go abroad, which travel credit card should I take? All these jogadu things, or like all these well-planned things is something that I get a lot of questions on, because I think because of the education, because of the awareness today, people know what benefits they can get. And that's what they usually ask me. And I think one question which really irritates me, and I think it's all right because I made a lot of videos on it, is if someone's on an airport and the flight's delayed or cancelled, Anushka, मेरी flight 3 घंटे से delay हुई है, कितना compensation मिलेगा? I am not kidding you. In my WhatsApp star messages, I have the Ministry of Civil Aviation passenger charters saved, and I just keep forwarding it to people who ask me these questions.
So, there's a generational shift in the money conversation. So, you're talking to 20 or, that decade of between 20 and maybe 35. A lot of the people in my network will be in their 40s and 50s. So, couple of things. One is the first response when you say that you're in financial education and you write about money is, I don't have anything. Where is the money to start? And these are people who have houses in Delhi and they have a good lifestyle. Again, it goes back to that time where only the bad people had money. Okay, so in socialist India, if you were rich, you were evil. Those were the binaries. So the poor people had a high moral ground. So I see symptoms of that even today So the first response is, oh, I don't have, where is the money to start? So I'm saying, can you not do $5,000? 5,000. So I said, there is the money. The second is, tell me 5 funds to invest in, which I cannot answer because I don't know who you are, what your asset allocation is like. So it's like telling a doctor, Sin mein dard hai. What do? I don't know. Maybe it's your eyes, maybe it's your brain. How do I know? Right? So these are the 2 responses of denial, that if I don't look at this problem, I don't have to deal with it. Or this thing of, what is a tip? Give me a tip. It isn't this problem solving that I'm stuck at an airport. What do I do? It's more of the fundamental attitude towards money. So I think it's a generational change.
No, the tips thing even I get.
Yeah, you
which
do?
exact one? I said, I can't do that.
I can't
for
do
you.
that. Yes.
Yeah, you have to do your own research. I can show you how, I can guide you how.
Correct. I would be insulting both you and me when I give you a list of 5 funds to invest in. I'm showing you the path. Unless you do the research, you will always come back to me.
Yeah, and also you need to have that confidence yourself, because all these investments, they're not linear.
Correct.
They're volatile.
That's right.
So if something happens tomorrow, you need to be confident that it's a right decision that you made and it's eventually going to pay off. If you've just listened to someone and invested, you'll never have that conviction. If you don't tell this, or if you give like a general statement that you should do your own research, these are steps, people think we don't know, we are not smart enough.
Yeah, that's
and they go to people.
I'm happy to be not smart enough. Yeah. I will not give wrong advice.
I think it's something that, especially today in the video area and the social media area, people should be cautious about. That there is no easy way, there are no shortcuts. Yeah. And if someone's giving you a shortcut, there's probably something, either they're trying to get that attention or they're earning money through it. Something, there has to be some motive behind it. It's plain and it's boring and it's mundane, but you have to do it. What is a piece of advice that you give to people now that you wish you knew when you were younger?
So the piece of advice is really, it's again the same old thing, that you have to begin. It doesn't matter whether you have $1,000 or 50,000 rupees. So one is that you have to begin. Second is that, you're going to be doing this all your life. People will come and go, but till the time that you're alive, you need money. After that, it doesn't matter. You can't take a penny with you, nothing you can take. But till your last moment, you need it. So make friends with it. Learn how to deal with it. Make the money do what you want to do. You don't let the money be your master. You are the master of the money. So learn to keep it in control. Learn to make it grow. So those are the sort of things that I like to tell.
For a lot of people, I think they're really scared to make these decisions or begin with, because they're always worried that they'll make a mistake.
Yeah.
So I would say just accept it that you're going to make mistakes. Not all your decisions are going to be 100% correct. Not all your investments are going to give you a 20% CAGR. But make sure that, you get started earlier so that you make those mistakes when you have lesser amount and you also have time on your side. And just be at it. Like, don't delegate that responsibility to someone completely. Do your own research. Stay on top of it and understand, where the mistake was made or how you can improvise or how you can adjust it according to your scenario, and accordingly then make your decisions. So accept that you're going to make mistakes. Take professional help where needed, and professional help is not people on social media.
Correct.
Yeah, it's actually the advisors out there. So ensure that you're going to the right people for that advice, and accept that you're going to make a mistake and start as early as possible.
Yeah, and the other thing also is to walk away from trying to target the highest return. You always have to learn to leave money on the table.
Yeah.
You will never buy at the lowest and sell at the highest. Nobody does that. So you have to decide what is your target rate of return, what is your asset allocation, and according to your asset allocation, then you make the decisions to buy and sell. Also comparing your own returns with the highest performing fund or product it's a self-defeating exercise, because you're always going to be unhappy. I think it's similar in life, that if you keep comparing yourself to the hottest star in Hindi cinema, you're always going to feel dowdy, right? But if you compare yourself in your peer group, you're okay.
That's fair. Yeah.
Okay. What is a common myth about finance that you want to dispel?
That it's too complicated.
Yes.
The most difficult part is to get started. Once you've done that, once you've started it, things do get easier with time.
Yeah. No, and also I think one of the myths is that women are not good at managing and investing. So I find that women do two things with money. One is that they're very efficient managers of money for the household. And this, they begin to think, is where their role is limited to. But when the decisions on the thousands becomes a decision on the lakhs, then they hand that decision over to the men.
Yeah.
So this myth which has been created, and I think I think it's also the upbringing for girls. So you've had a very fortunate
The
upbringing.
social conditioning.
Yes, and also especially in business families,
Yeah.
the assets go down the male line.
Yeah.
So what I found, through a lot of interactions is that if the girl child is not told about the family assets, she will not ask for the share,
Yeah.
whatever the law might say. So keep the girl children out of the money discussion about especially the assets, where they are, in whose name they are. And there is a social messaging also to women. So many times you hear, don't worry your pretty head about it. Leave it to the boys. And, that myth, I have worked very hard to dispel. If you're a lawyer, you're a scientist, you're a doctor, you're a housewife, you're managing very complicated situations even within a house, you're fully capable of managing money, investing. You just have to learn.
No, I completely agree. And it's a lot of it is conditioning. I have friends who are making, from the top universities, making amazing money, and they're not confident about it because they were never spoken to it. They never got comfortable with the, different options out there. And they were never comfortable investing or making bigger decisions when it comes to money.
Yeah.
And then, when you compare it to men, they just assume that, they'll be good at it and they're very confident.
Yeah.
And that sort of, breaks the barrier. And also say one thing which I've observed is that, and especially, even when I had to deal with such situations, is that the person who's selling to you, or, your accountant, your CA, is usually a guy. They always, somewhere I think, they never take you as seriously.
Yes.
And they always presume that you won't understand. So they'll tell you things, just the fluff of stuff, and like,
Papa ko bulao, husband
yeah, exactly.
ko bulao.
And they'll ask for that. My CA, when I have to go visit him, if I go and talk, it's not probably taken as seriously. But if I go with my father, he gives me proper time and he gives me all the attention. And it's okay because he's also, in his 50s, and he also has
different generation.
Like a different generation. But even today, if I see all the people who are selling you all these mutual funds or insurance policies, they are usually men. And when I ask them 10 questions, I become arrogant. I become someone who is not affable. And when my brothers ask, it's okay. It's their job. They're being thorough about it. But when you do it, you come across as arrogant, or someone who should know how to behave properly when talking to elder people and all of that. So I have personally faced this, that even the people who are supposed to help you make these decisions, and people who are selling you all these things, they don't treat you as well. And I then think I become super conscious.
I completely resonate with this. So one time I was buying a car for myself, and the car dealer had come home. So I was asking all the questions. I was buying on EMI, down payment, insurance. He was beginning to shift in his chair, and my husband was traveling. He was not in the room. So he did this little dance around the table with the ye paper, wo paper. Acha, madam, color kaun sa lengi? I'm saying, seriously, color, let's do the finance decisions, no? So they do talk down to women. And that's why I think it's so important that women in finance, and, people like yourself who are there, who also will inspire other women to say, look, it's not difficult.
Yeah.
It can be done. And then at some point, the men have to take you seriously. Yeah.
No, for all the companies that I work with, they always come back to me asking for what the customer or the consumer wants. And I always tell them there's an untapped market.
Yes.
There are a lot of women who are educated, who are earning money, but they don't have that support. They don't have that, people talking to them, making them comfortable and understanding. You can actually tap that. And I've, had startups have actually catered to that, and they've seen positive responses coming from that.
Some like a woman-only financial planning service, I think would be fantastic.
There are.
Yeah, there are. Just a few. I think we just need many more of them. Right?
And we are the educated part of the society.
Yes.
What about when you go to tier 2, tier 3 cities, villages? There the difference is even more stark, and there you need women to explain to other women how they can go about managing their finances.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is one thing that people don't know about those in the financial profession?
I think the one thing that people don't know is that people in the financial profession don't look after their own money. So I have done talks in a lot of the big banks, the MNC banks. I have done talks within the regulatory bodies, okay, both RBI, SEBI. I have done talks in mutual funds. One common refrain from the staff is that we work in the financial sector, but we have no idea how to look after our own money. So that is like really surprising to me, that you are in the financial sector, but you cannot take that lesson home. And this goes back a long way. So I've been a career journalist for 30 years before I left a few years back. And, your colleagues are people who are following the stock market. There would always be the stock market reporters who would do these stories, stock market up, stock market down. They would follow the market for years. But where was their money? In a savings deposit, not even a fixed deposit. So I think this is this disconnect between what you do for your profession and whether you take that lesson home or not.
I think a lot of it is also, so say for example, there's a person who is constantly talking about money, investments, stocks, right? There is not a lot to it. After a point, once the basics are covered, a lot of it is news-based only. And you don't have to make so many decisions basis the news and what's happening. So once you have your basics sorted and once you are past that conversation, where do you get that content? What do you talk about? What do you speak in interviews? So that's when, they start talking about all these things. But at the end of the day, they're SIPs in their mutual fund. So they have a PMS where their money is parked, or they have like something very simple, something very basic as a portfolio of their PF, their FDs, and an SIP which is going on. So I think what people can take away from this is that you don't have to listen to so much on a daily basis about what's happening or what decision you have to make today based on where the market is going, what you should do next. A lot of it is simple, and a lot of it which is basic will stand through all these news and all the turmoil. So keep it simple, keep it basic. Even people who are making content, so say for example the small cap market recently corrected a bit, and everyone's like, should I sell it, should I do that, you don't have to. People in the news are talking about it because it's content for them and it's news, they cover it, that's their job. But you as a consumer, or you as a person who has to make decision about their finances, you should see, is this stock market correction that is happening today anyway going to affect my long-term investments or what my vision is? No, then great, forget about it. And when you are making those decisions, when you're investing in volatile assets, it's even more important you distance yourself from these, because keeping your emotions in check is very important. Where people are coming from is get quick rich. They need to understand that if you want to take a moderate amount of risk, which is calculated risk and good for you, it is going to take time.
It's going to take time. There's no instant gratification. What is the biggest hurdle you faced in your career?
On the personal front, I would, say that convincing my parents that having trust in me to not get married in my early 20s and letting me pursue my career full time and give all of myself to my career and what I want to do. And that especially came when I left the traditional path of being in personal finance or being in the capital markets and shifting to something which is a little bit more dynamic, which is was back then very unknown. So getting them comfortable with the idea that, listen, I know I'm taking a risk and I know that, I am a girl, but have faith in me, give me some time. If nothing else, I can always go back to my traditional path, but believe in me in some times. And mind you, my parents were relatively easier to convince. Who were not easier to convince is my extended family. You will listen to all these comparisons that I did, because, that's the kind of family I come from, that, she maintains her figure so well, or she knows amazing how to cook. She's, brilliant chef, and she takes care of the entire household. The mother does not have to even go in the kitchen. And then I would work and then, just give the time that I had before working and after my working hours into my household. So those comparisons and all are going to be there, but you have to have a tunnel vision and know what you're going for. So I think that was, I would say, my biggest hurdle, that being okay with making or not being the way my family wanted me to be.
I think it is the families who play such a large role in success of especially women. See, men are programmed to go out and work, and the whole house sort of arranges itself around a man's schedule. But when it is a woman, the entire conversation changes. And however much you might say that we have moved and this is 2024 and, we've so advanced, but I think within the homes, the conversations haven't changed at all.
Yeah.
And the spillover comes into the women's careers. And what you just said has such a big impact. So the biggest change that I feel that we need is a change in the mindset within the homes. We need to bring up our boys better. They don't need to help in the house. They need to share the housework. Only then do you have gender equality.
Exactly. What is one major way we can facilitate better financial literacy in India?
I think it has to start in the schools. There is no other way. And I believe that they're adding 10, 15 pages in the school curriculum, but we do need to start changing the narrative about money. The narrative about money over the years has been that money is evil, profit is a dirty word. This narrative has to change of profit being a good word. Exploitation is a bad word. Profits are wonderful, right? So this has to change. We need to understand that India is moving towards a very different future from what it used to be. I think it's a change in the story about ourselves, who we are.
No, but what you said is exactly correct. And something that even I had, suggest is that it should start at the school level,
right,
where you at least get the basics of how the breadth of it works. And then, if you want to, whatever decisions you want to make, you can streamline as to what you want to read. But once you have that basic, literature on finance, personal finance, you understand it, you're comfortable reading, you won't be as averse or as intimidated by it later in future.
Yeah.
It was great talking to you.
Wonderful. I'm so delighted and so glad that the future of finance is with people like you.